कोणती गोष्ट फायदेशीर होईल तेवढा विचार कर आणि जी फायदेशीर असेल ते काम तू कर, म्हणजे तुझं काम बरोबर चाललंय असं मानता येईल. हा गांधीजींनी मंत्र सांगितला होता. हा मंत्र केवळ त्या मंत्रासाठी नाही, तर तो तुम्हा आम्हांसाठी आहे. ही गोष्ट लक्षात ठेवली पाहिजे. पण हे सांगितलं पाहिजे की या मंत्राचं विस्मरण मैत्रेय फाउंडेशनला झालेलं नाही, हे आजच्या समारंभात सिद्ध झालं. म्हणून त्यांना आणि आपल्या सर्वांना मनपूर्वक धन्यवाद देऊन माझं भाषण संपवतो.
मित्र हो, भारताच्या एकूणच सुरक्षेविषयी आपण गाफील आहोत का, या विषयावरचा परिसंवाद थोड्या वेळाने या मंचावर होणार आहे. आणि मैत्रेय फाउंडेशनने आजचा ज्या कार्यक्रमामध्ये या परिसंवादाचं आयोजन केलं आहे, पण याच विषयावर बोलण्यासाठी विशेषतः इस्रायल हे जे राष्ट्र आहे, या इस्रायलच्या मुंबईतील कौन्सिल जनरल ऑर्ना सागिव या इथं आलेले आहेत. टाळ्यांच्या गजरामध्ये आपण त्यांचं इथं स्वागत करूया. तर या विषयावर त्यांनी कृपया मंचावर यावं अशी विनंती करतो. प्लीज कम ऑन द डायस मॅम. आणि वर्षाताई त्यांचं स्वागत करतील. मैत्रेय फाउंडेशनच्या अध्यक्षा वर्षाताई ऑर्ना सागिव यांचं स्वागत करतील. आणि त्या स्वागतानंतर एक 7 ते 8 मिनिटाचं प्रेझेंटेशन भाषण या ऑर्ना सागिव या ठिकाणी या मंचावर आपणा सर्वांसमोर करतील. एकूण सुरक्षेविषयी आणि इस्रायल या राष्ट्राविषयी, त्याच्या प्रगतीविषयी आपल्याला त्या माहिती देतील. ऑर्ना सागिव यांचा जर परिचय करून द्यायचा झाला तर इस्रायली डिफेन्स फोर्सेसमध्ये टँक इन्स्ट्रक्टर, इस्रायली डिफेन्स फोर्सेसमध्ये टँक इन्स्ट्रक्टर म्हणून प्रशिक्षण घेतल्यानंतर पॉलिटिकल सायन्स आणि क्रिमिनॉलॉजी या विषयातली पदवी त्यांनी घेतली. इस्रायलच्या परराष्ट्र खात्यातली सेवा काळात आतापर्यंत तैवान आणि बीजिंगमध्ये त्यांनी काम केलं. तिथे जाऊन त्यांनी चायनीज भाषा शिकली. 2002 ते 2005 या कालावधीमध्ये ऑस्ट्रेलियातल्या कॅनबेरा इथं इस्रायली एम्बसीमध्ये त्या कार्यरत होत्या. 2008 सालापासून कौन्सिल जनरल मुंबई या पदावर त्यांची नेमणूक झाली. त्या पूर्ण शाकाहारी आहेत. 2 मुलं आणि 1 मुलीच्या आई आहेत आणि बॉलिवूडच्या फिल्म्स देखील त्यांना खूप आवडतात. ऑर्ना सागिव, प्लीज कम टू द डायस. May I request Orna Sagiv, the Consul General of Israel, to address this August gathering.
Good evening, Shalom, Namaskar. And I really have to apologize that I did not understand much, and I will not speak in Marathi. Namaskar is more or less all I can say. But the dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, Varsha, thank you for inviting me here tonight. It's a great opportunity, such an august crowd, and it's really a great opportunity for me to speak a little bit. Now, I have to be very honest with you. When I was invited and I saw also the invitation, it was written that I was going to speak about security of India. Well, I see a few experts here about security of India. I will not speak about security of India. I will leave it to the experts. But it made me really think, what is security? And you know that we are a country that have been dealing with the issue of security for years, since the establishment of our country, unfortunately. And then, you know, I have a very, very short time. So how can you really speak about security in 10, 15 minutes? What I think is really to present to you a few challenges, global challenges, that we, I think, as Israelis, you as Indians, and I think it's a global issue today, we've been dealing with those challenges. And I think that all of those challenges are challenges that are influencing our security. Because security is not only terrorism, it's not only wars, there are other things. And we have social activists here today, so it even makes me think even more, what is security? How can you make sure that your society is secure? Now, before I start, coming from Israel, I'm sure that all of you know lots about Israel. And I found as a consul general here that I'm very lucky because I have the feeling here that people love Israel, people know about Israel, people remember, the 6-Day War and then Tebe, all of those things from 20, 30, 40 years ago. Israel is a small, small country. If you travel in Israel from north to south, maximum 8 hours. If you travel in Israel from east to west at the most narrow place, you know how much time it takes you? 15 minutes. Where can you get in Mumbai in 15 minutes? You tell me. This is one thing that... so just to get the proportions, that we are a very, very small country. We are a country that is surrounded by neighbors that are, let's say, not very friendly to us. I think that in India, some of those, you don't have the size problem, but you definitely feel the same feeling sometimes that you are surrounded by countries that are not, that you don't have very amicable relations with all of them. We are a small nation of 7.5 million people, that's it. Again, compare it even with Mumbai, I'm not talking about India. Small, small nation. And since Israel was established in 1948, only 9 months after India, and since then, Israel has become one of the leading countries in the world in many fields. If you're talking about agriculture, IT, water management, of course, homeland security and defense, and so many other issues, and you ask yourself how Israel basically did it. Now, when I come to crowds, and when I speak with smaller crowds, here it's a little bit difficult to do this drill. If I ask you, what is Israel? What do you know about Israel? I would guess, and this is from my 3 years experience here, people will immediately say defense. Some people will say drip irrigation. And other people will say diamonds, maybe. This is what you hear about Israel. I call it the triple D. But I think that there is so much more. And I think the connections between Israel and India is very, very strong. We established diplomatic relations only 20 years ago. We will celebrate the 20 years in the coming January. It will be 20 years of diplomatic relations. We started 20 years ago with $200 million of bilateral trade. Today, we are almost at $5 billion. And this is only civilian trade between our two nations. The Jewish community that used to live here in India mostly immigrated to Israel. Today, the community here is almost 5,000 people all over India, that's it. But this community never suffered from execution, was never expelled, never faced all of those troubles that all of us as Jews all over the world, except from India, suffered from. So I think that we always said that the Jewish community here and the rest of the community is like milk and sugar, really blended into each other, live together. And today, if you go to Israel, you will find 1 lakh Israelis from Indian origin that is living in Israel today. So 1 lakh, it's quite a lot, 100,000 people from India that live today, Jewish community that lives in Israel. So that was just, to say a few words very, very quick about Israel. Now, talking of the challenges, I think that when we're talking about challenges, of course, security and defense is the main challenge that always comes to mind. And the challenge today of security, in a way, is not different from the challenges of security that was there 50 years ago, even 200 years ago. At the same time, there are some sectors that have changed dramatically. And I think that today the unconventional threats from some countries and the terrorism have become a main problem for governments because suddenly it's not only the soldiers in the battlefield, it's not the soldiers at the LOC in Kashmir, suddenly, or in our borders, suddenly it's us, it's the civilian populations. We are now at the first front. And this is a problem that has, in my opinion, and again, I'm not an expert on security or defense, I think that it has a very, very strong psychological effect. It's a very strong pressure from the civilian population on the government because the fear factor is so strong. The feeling of people that they have no control. Nobody knows what will happen, where it may happen, And how can we prevent it? Because in many cases, the terrorists are always one step ahead of us. So what are we doing? Now, just, that we'll get into proportions. Of course, terrorism and, coming from a country that has been suffering from terrorism and very intense terrorism for many, many years, I know what does it mean to live under terrorism. I know what does it mean to have little children and taking them to the mall and thinking twice, can I take the bus? No, it's not safe. And talking with my husband and saying, if something happens, you take this son, I will take the other one, and we will meet that. How crazy it is. I mean, we come from a country that really has been suffering from terrorism. It is something very emotional that we all had to live with. But just for the numbers, for example, that people are getting killed in car accidents and in natural disasters in much, much larger numbers than from terror attacks. If you look at India, and today I found it in the internet, India ranks second in the world for natural disasters. Many people, unfortunately, die in India from natural disasters. Another interesting fact, 220 people die every day in India from a snake bite, which is amazing. I mean, the numbers are amazing. And if you remember, unfortunately, we had a terror attack here on the 13th of July. Only, I think, 1 or 2 weeks after that, there was a big train, a train accident here in India where 67 people lost their lives. It is 3 times more of the number of the people who lost their lives here in Mumbai. Still, I think the impact of those terror attacks are much larger, and again demand the government to give a solution, to find some solution for the people. Now, I wish I had a solution. I wish I could stand here and say, we need to do this, but there is no solution. And for us as Israel, what we do realize that it's impossible to eliminate terrorism completely. You cannot do it. I mean, at least we could not do it. What we want to do is really to limit the scope of the attacks and really to minimize their effect and minimize their damage. And until now, and I can knock wood, about 85% of the planned terror attacks in Israel are not happening because we are working very, very hard to stop them. Now, what we do, of course, I can speak only for one night only about that, but basically is attacking the terrorist cells, expanding the campaigns against countries that actually sponsor terrorism, and really they legitimize terrorism all over the world. And one more sentence that I want to say about it, what we find that is very important is the whole issue of post-trauma. Because unfortunately, people are getting killed in terror attacks. But what happened with those that are left? What happens with the victims that were only injured, but were injured? With the families? Who is taking care of them? Who knows how to deal with the trauma? So in Israel, we put a lot of efforts into trying to deal with those post-traumas and assist the victims and their families. Now, very quickly, I will move to another challenge that, again, I believe can influence security, and this is the economic challenges. So, of course, we all know about the global slowdown, and the global slowdown influences each and every one of us, even if we don't feel it on a daily basis, even if in India you don't feel it as strongly as in other places in the world, but it does affect us. At the same time, I think that we have other very basic challenges. And, for example, one challenge is to supply food and fresh water to a growing society all over, a growing population all over the world. So the issue of sustainability has really become an issue that most of the governments in the world today are dealing with. And if I'm talking about economic issues and food and water, I want to say a few words about water and the agriculture. In Israel, we are a very arid land. We don't have water, we hardly have natural rain, and we just don't have enough water. So throughout the years, we developed a few mechanisms to solve this problem. One is, for example, Israel has the largest desalination plant in the world. We desalinate the water, the seawater, and use it for drinking. Another thing, if I'm talking about water, is the fact that we recycle about 85% of our water. So almost every drop of water that we drink is being recycled and being used for agriculture. This is something very radical. Just to give you the numbers, the number 2 country in the world after Israel with 85%